Hi everybody, today we're going to be covering how to use Inkscape to generate some SVG and DXF files that you can import into EAGLE for custom PCB shapes and also custom images that you can put on the Silkscreen layer. So we're going to start out by opening a file or an image that we already have in mind. You can do this just by going to File, Open, and I already have this loaded up, but I'm going to be using this BAT file right here, and you can tell that it is black and white. That is by design. So you're going to get these settings here. Most of the time I just hit OK. It's going to auto-optimize this file. You'll see me bring it around the side here, but we'll go ahead and maximize this. So if we scroll in to this image, you'll see that it is extremely blurry and pixelated around the edges whenever you scroll in. Now that's not going to work for our uses in a program like EAGLE, because it needs to have hard defined edges that can outline an interior shape. So what we're going to do is, I'll go ahead and zoom out a little bit. You'll notice that if we just click on this image, it'll highlight all the corners. You can see that there's a good amount of white space above and below this black bat outline that we're going to be using. Kind of looks like a batarang. That is also by design. So we're going to be going up to where it says Path, and we're going to go down to Trace Bitmap. Now you'll notice that this is going to work most effectively whenever you have a solid dark shape, preferably black, on a whiter or preferably lighter or preferably white background. So there's that level of contrast. You'll notice here that there is this brightness threshold. And we can actually invert this image if we would rather have the outside of this. But for the time being, we're going to be focusing on just this outline. These default settings are going to be just fine. So with the image selected and all of this as it is off the bat, we're going to hit OK. And you'll notice it will kind of pop up with this little image in here. We'll just go ahead and exit out of this window because we actually have everything that we need. You'll notice that this selection was trimmed down only to where the black outline is. And you'll see that we can zoom in on this, and there is that very nice crisp line there, but there's also kind of the fuzz below it. So the original picture is actually still below this outline that it's generated. So we're going to select in the white space where the old picture was and hit delete. You'll notice that kind of cleaned up the edges there a bit. So let's go ahead and zoom in. And you'll notice that we can keep zooming and zooming and zooming, and it still looks pretty darn sharp. That is because this is a bunch of vectors and curves and stuff, so we are going to be getting the most accurate representation of the outline of this image. So how are we going to save this in order to import it? Well, that's a good question because there are multiple different ways that we could save this. First and foremost, I'm just going to go down here and hit Save As. And we want to save this as an Inkscape SVG. This retains all of the information that Inkscape has generated for this image. Now, it might not be usable by other, like with other programs, but for the time being, this is going to be fine because we're going to be exporting it a couple of different ways. But just for right now, we're going to hit Save As. You can keep it bat1.svg, hit save. You can see that the file name has updated in the upper left-hand corner. We're going to go back to File and Save As. And you'll notice if you go to this drop-down, there's a whole bunch of things that you can select here. So first and foremost, we're going to be saving this as a plain SVG. So a plain SVG is the typical I believe it is a vector graphics format that a lot of programs will be able to use. You'll notice that Adobe Illustrator is famous for using the SVG format because it is a vector graphics editor. Photoshop can also export this file type, though not as effectively. So we're going to do bat1, and I'm just going to name this, let's do _ plain, so that we know this is the one that we are going to be using for all of our other programs outside of Inkscape. So we'll go ahead and save that as well. And then finally, we're going to go up here and do File, Save As one last time. And we're going to come down to where you see AutoCAD DXF R12 and R14. Now, I believe these are just different revisions. I am actually not quite sure about this, but I would recommend using the R12. It has worked best for me whenever I have been trying to import it into other programs. So that's one we're going to be saving, and we will just go ahead and get rid of this plane here because DXF is a different format, and we don't need that extra detail there. So this is going to be almost just the outline, and then it's going to recognize that everything inside of that outline is contained in that shape. So we're going to just go ahead and hit save for that. Might take a second there because it is generating a different file type. And you'll see that if I open up this folder with the files in it, we get the original JPEG there. We get the Inkscape SVG. We also get the plain SVG. Both of these can be opened in Inkscape. So just if you're going to be editing this, I highly recommend opening the regular SVG. You can actually see that the file size is a little bit different down here. So the Inkscape SVG, like I said, has a little bit more information. So Inkscape can recognize, okay, here's how I generated this image, stuff like that. DXF, though, you'll notice is significantly bigger than either of these two. And it doesn't have a program associated with it. That's because AutoCAD just wants this to be left as a general thing. I think if you have the AutoCAD drawing software, it will open this by default. But I don't have that installed, and we're going to be using AutoCAD's EAGLE to import that in just a second here. So let me get transitioned over, and I'll be right back. So here we are in EAGLE. This is a brand new board file from the schematic that I had used in the Workshop 3 for the IEEE projects. So it's the same exact schematic, and it's going to be extremely similar to the actual workshop content, as you'll see here in just a moment. So it provides you with this very, very large thing here. Let's hit escape to get out of that. This is an outline that we really don't want. It's a dimension of the board that is much too big for our needs. Obviously, we only have 11 components. So we're going to just select all of this and go ahead and delete it. Now, keep in mind the location for this. We're actually going to be using the DXF file here in just a moment. So make sure you have that location handy. All right. We're going to go up here to File. We're going to do Import DXF. So you can see I had kind of already been working in this desktop IEEE location. Let me go ahead and get up the actual location for the file that we're using. All right, so you'll notice here that I have the correct file name in here. This is just in that Inkscape demo folder that I was using before. The target layer this time is going to be 20 dimensions. So it's going to be the outline or the dimension of the PCB that we're going to be using. The X origin, Y origin, and width can stay the same. I happen to know by trial and error that the scale of this one is going to be 0.03. So I'm going to go over here and just hit OK. And it's going to come up with a bunch of script here. You can scroll through it, but it's going to be a bunch of nonsense because you'll notice that these numbers are actually drawing wires from one location to another. So we're just going to hit run here. And you'll notice that in a couple of seconds, it will draw out this shape. So whenever it does this, you'll notice that it is actually made up of many different lines at different angles, and they are curved slightly. So whenever you scroll out, it just looks like the shape that we had. You can see down at the bottom here, it's got that funky little thing going on. It had the same thing for me. I just wanted to see if it kept that as we imported it here. Anyway, you can go ahead and place all of your components on. We don't really need to do that right now because we're not actually going to be building out this PCB. I just want to show you how to place some stuff. But let's go back here to File, Import DXF, and let's go ahead and bump this scale down significantly and maybe put this onto T-place. So this is going to be the top of our board, and it's going to be the layer of all of the placement symbols. So you'll see the outline of the LEDs, you see the outline of this AT tiny board here. You also see the outline of this shift register that we have. So I'm going to be going in and just hitting OK again, and it's going to draw, there we go, another little outline of this bat. Let's go ahead and move this shift register out of the way. So because this is a collection of lines, and the same goes for the dimension that we had already done, you're going to have to select all of them. Go ahead and right click, new group. Oops, let's do bat place. That's what I meant to do. Bat place, and then we can go over here to move. We're going to go move group, and we can move this up here. You'll notice it's not filled in. So whenever you import DXF files, let's go ahead and just put that right in the middle. Kind of looks like Batman. So whenever you import these DXF files, it only is going to draw the outline. Well, what if we want to, say, fill it in? Because a lot of what we're going to want to do is going to have filled shapes. Again, it works best for solid shapes. If you have other shapes that have, say, like a hole in it, there's a different method for doing that, and you can find a couple of other tutorials online. We're not going to cover that today. But let's go ahead and see how we might be able to import a solid image. All right, so we're actually at a nice little GitHub web page that I've used multiple times in the past. So this is actually going to transfer and we'll say convert our SVG file into a script that you can run in EAGLE that will go ahead and draw the lines around and form the polygon on the board. So we're going to go through a couple of the config options here. T-place is where we're going to want our CAD layer here, and this just defines what layer you're going to be putting the SVG on. Trace width doesn't really matter to us right now. Also signal name, because this is just going to be on our Silkscreen. We don't need to have the signal on any one particular thing or another. This subsampling, though, is going to be pretty helpful, just because some of the SVGs we might have are either very large or very small, and this can speed up the conversion time if you have this set to a lower value, or a larger value may provide a nicer looking SVG, but might increase the time for conversion. Going down here, though, the SVG scale factor is going to be incredibly important, and this is actually inverse to what you might find in some other ULPs, which is a different type of script that you may run in EAGLE. But we're going to want to output this to just the board. We don't want to create a new library from this. So let's go ahead and choose that file. So I happen to know that I want this bat1 plane. You could ignore this opt in there. That was just me experimenting with some stuff. But we're going to go into this bat1 plane. Going to go ahead and hit open and convert. There we go. So you'll see this nice big image here, and displays the SVG in a pretty high resolution. So the SVG width, not in millimeters, guessing dimensions based on scale factor. So this scale factor, by default, for some reason, it's 3.542. Not really sure why, but I have found that a scale factor of 30 provides something that is much better, much more fitting for our board size. This is about 1.7 centimeters, long, which is about what we had the DXF file at. So when we hit convert here, it's going to bring this up, and if you scroll down, you'll see this big button that says download EAGLE script. So go ahead and click on that. You'll notice that it imports here. I already have one imported, so I'm going to flip back to EAGLE here, and I'll show you how to run that script. All right, we are back in EAGLE. So let me go ahead and up here to this SCR execute script file. Mine was just in downloads, and I already have it in the quick bar here. I'll show you how to get to it. Otherwise, you'd go to browse and then downloads here. So this import svg.script here, this is the one that I just did. But they're exactly the same. I've done the exact same configuration for both. So if you look, go ahead and hit open. You'll see that down here it makes this nice little image. Oops, let me go ahead and hit escape out of that. So you should be able to select this and go ahead and hit move. Oh, again, this is a necessary to make a group, I believe. No, maybe we just go move group. Yeah, there we go. I have the whole thing selected, and so I can move it. Might be a little bit laggy because remember, it's a lot of components that it's moving, actually. You'll notice that it's a lot of little different lines there. So I can go ahead and move this up. I had marked on here where I wanted it to go. So I want the tip of it to go right on that little line there. There we go. Looks great. And so again, you can always experiment with the scale factors and determine what you like best on here. I just figured this would be a nice size as it's pretty comparable to the other one. You'll notice that some of the corners may be rounded a bit, and that's just a result of the software in here. I kind of like the rounded corners, but there may be some instances where you want them a little bit sharper like that, just taking a look kind of at the wing tip here. Anyway, so that is how you can import both the DXF and SVG files. I find that they are much easier to use than the bitmap import option. The bitmap import will actually just draw out a bunch of lines, and it works for some things. For others, not so much. I just find it much easier to work with polygons, as you can select the whole entire thing, move it around using the right click and move group function. So yeah, and that's about it for me. If you have any questions, I would love to help you out in the comments below. Any comments that you might have about this video, again, that is where you can direct them. And I'll be dropping a couple of links in the description to videos and resources that I have used. I will also make sure to provide the demo files that I'm working with down there, and the github.io page that I have been using. All right, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.